Hey travelers, we want to know,
how relevant are travel guides this day and age? So in today's video, we just wanted to kind of give you like two different sides of how relevant in today's world with modern technology a paper or ebook travel guide is when planning a trip or going on a trip. And for these, we're talking about like Lonely Planet, Rough Guides, Rick Steves, Fodor's, any of those major travel guide companies that you would get when you're planning your trip.
So I'm going to be the devil's advocate in today's video. And I'm going to be giving more of the cons about using travel guides, whereas Caleb is going to be giving more of the positives and pros to using travel guides in today's world. So the first con that I have is once a travel guide is written and published, it's pretty much out of date. No matter how much planning is done when creating a travel guide, as soon as it's written and published, that information could change that day. So when creating a travel guide, it usually takes a really long time. It could take up to a year to gather all the information. No matter how reputable a travel guide or travel company is, there's always new information to find, so you can't always take it at face value.
Okay, so the flip side to that is despite it having some out-of-date information and changes in prices and times, the majority of it is going to still be relevant, is still going to be accurate. You can still get inspiration for reading about a place despite the hours, the price is changing. Again, usually it's only minimal. Even places that are going to close, I feel like the majority of the information in an actual printed or ebook version of a travel guide is still going to be relevant, still going to be helpful. So I'd still say, despite having some outdated information, most of it's still going to be accurate.
The second con that I have to using travel guides, especially ones that are printed, is that they're heavy and they take up a lot of space. If you've watched our travel videos, you know that we usually just bring backpacks with us. We don't usually check suitcases. Most things that we take are electronics, cameras.
Yeah, the heaviest things.
Yeah, the heaviest things are like electronics and stuff like that. If you travel like us, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to be taking tons and tons of books with you, especially if you're going to be moving from place to place and you don't want to feel like you have a ton of bricks on your back.
Yeah, that is definitely a big con for sure. However, despite that, I'm gonna give you like the most sliverest of silver lining that I can find to counteract this one. And that is, if you use your travel guide, your printed travel guide, like Rick Steves says in a lot of his books, he says rip out only the sections that you need, make notes. He totally agrees. In this day and age, it doesn't make a lot of sense to carry those books that can be like humongous, especially like some big countries. When you've got like this massive book and you're only going to a small section of the country, why do you need to bog yourself down with all that extra space? So rip out the section that you need, or even rip out even just some pages of certain sections that you want to go to. Can definitely make it lighter. And again, it's really handy if you can just pull it out, especially if you don't have Wi-Fi connection. You can still read about it and find out information. So I know it's kind of a stretch, but you can lighten your load and only carry what you need in a printed book.
The third con to using a printed travel guide is that nowadays, basically everything related to travel can be found online. If you watched our recent video where Caleb shared our favorite Japanese travel resources, you know that he shared two of our favorite websites, Only in Japan and Japan Guide. So Japan Guide, basically you can find everything you could possibly want about pretty much any site in Japan. And there are a lot of other websites like that out there for other countries. You don't necessarily need a printed travel guide because all of that information can be found on your phone or tablet.
This is another one that's kind of a stretch. But although, yes, it's convenient and it's very accessible, and I totally agree, there is something to be said about having a book in your hand and versus an ebook, versus something digital, when you can read it and you can hold it, you can sit on your couch or your nice comfy chair with a blanket. And again, I know a lot of people probably don't do this with travel guides per se, but when you just have that book in your hand, and this comes down again purely to preference more than anything else, when you can read through it, it just kind of immerses you in the book, and you can just, you can get comfortable and get to know the book and get to know the area and just feel I don't know, like you're connecting with the country, maybe?
I mean, most people feel this about, you know, ebooks versus real books anyways.
Yeah.
Like, it's totally a different experience when you have a book in your hand and you're flipping the pages. You just feel more connected, I think. The fourth con that I have about travel guides are that they're not always written for the realistic or average traveler. A lot of times, especially like Rick Steves or more of the like high class, well-known travel guides, it's for like the rich traveler. It's for the retired couple that's gonna go on a 3-week excursion through Europe. They have no qualms about spending tons of money on hotels and expensive restaurants. So sometimes when you look in these travel guides, you're like, okay, I can't really afford this 4-star hotel, so where are the hostels in this city? Yeah. It's not always realistic.
Okay. Another one that's a stretch. However, despite what you're saying, and I definitely agree with all of what you said, but books written by Rick Steves and books written by Lonely Planet are written by professionals. So what they are recommending in their hotels and their restaurants and their sites are written from the perspective of someone that does this every day or regularly, that knows the area, that is a reputable source and trustworthy compared to a lot of places that you can get online, like TripAdvisor per se, or Yelp, that are written by the average person. We do the same. We write reviews on those sites and we check them, but they can be totally misconstrued. They can be, if you have one bad experience, you can ruin the reputation of someone, and they're not coming at it from an even playing field. So despite that, what they are writing is very reputable. So you know, if you're looking in your guidebook and you find a place, it might be a little more expensive, but you know it's trustworthy. If Rick Steves says this is a place I'd recommend, I would definitely take his recommendation over, you know, Joe Schmo on TripAdvisor that stayed at the same place or whatever. I'm rambling on way too much.
The fifth and final con that I have is that printed travel guides cost money, and anything that you can find online is absolutely free. Some of these travel guides out there, if you go to like Barnes & Nobles or, I don't know, Borders or whatever.
Borders?
Is Borders even a thing anymore? They cost like $30. That's a lot of money. That's like a train ticket.
Those are full color pictures and photographs.
But think of what you could do with the $30 that you spend on a travel guide. Think of what you could buy in the country that you're visiting.
So to counteract Kelly's argument about the cost, I would say that you can usually check out the travel book that you're wanting to access. You can go to your library, you can either rent out a physical copy, or you can even sometimes get a digital copy off of like Overdrive or your library's digital Kindle versions or something like that. You can't rip it up, so this would go against what I said earlier, but you could even take it out of the country if you have like a physical copy. You'd check it out before your trip. So.
And you can always, you know, copy pages that you need, so you can just take that with you.
Didn't think of that one.
You're welcome. So after all of that, what would you say is our opinion on printed travel guides?
Overall, I would say I think a printed travel guide is a good resource, or an e-book version of that. I think it is a really good, useful tool to use to create inspiration, to give you ideas.
And I honestly don't really have anything against printed travel guides, because for a person like me who has a hard time deciding like exactly what I want to do, like I usually have a hard time planning a trip. So a travel guide, you know, whether it's printed or in ebook form, it kind of gives me a starting point, like where I want to jump off of and how I want to start planning my trip. So now it's your turn. Let us know in the comments below what you think about travel guides. If you think they're helpful, whether or not you like them in printed form or ebook form.
Or are you like us and you can appreciate both sides, the pros and the cons, and you're kind of a mix.
Let us know what you think. We hope that you enjoyed watching this video. As always, if you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to hit subscribe and the little bell notification, because we put out new videos every Tuesday and Friday, and you definitely don't want to miss any of our next adventures.
Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time.